Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday in the month of October. What's that mean? Who knows?
I know.
Oh, you raised your hand. I guess we'll pick you. Go ahead, Brett.
Town hall meeting in Otter Creek. How many more of these are we going to cover? We're not really sure. We don't know that anybody's going to film it, but they do have the agenda posted, and we'd like to go over the agenda just to maybe explain maybe a few things, those things that we can explain.
Yeah, this could be the last one.
It might be.
Not really sure.
It just kind of depends on what's going on and if there's any wow or any new news going on in the meeting. And there are a couple of points of interest in this meeting.
I would love to have that meeting packet.
But yeah, the meeting packet would be nice to see because the agenda is kind of vague. It talks about assigning new terms to the appointed seats.
Start there, or are you going to start with go in order?
Go ahead and go in order.
He likes to jump right in. So, of course, it starts, with the usual call to order, pledge, roll call, the approval of the agenda. And at this time is where if they need to amend the agenda at all, they can. Now, this agenda is already amended. They had originally hung one up and then hung an amended one.
After.
And it's just a little bit different than the first one, more detail on the amended version and different wording as well. And then, of course, they'll have the approval of the minutes from September and October, which usually, I forgot, they did have an October 7th meeting because they did do the budget, the trim and budget hearings in September and October. So that's why they have extra minutes to cover.
Okay.
And at that time is usually when they either reset the millage rate or leave it the same. Which, since nobody was filming, nobody knows.
Yeah.
Then under old business, they have contract for JPI, Joseph Payne.
I don't know who that is or what he does.
I'm thinking that may have something to do with the building and planning.
I think so. Not animal control. Yeah. So this is the level of detail that's missing from the agenda, I think.
Yeah, see, when I used to write the agendas, I gave tons of detail, as everybody knows. And I think it's a good thing to do that, but I guess they don't.
Yeah.
I can just put it that way.
They also took prayer out of the meetings.
Things
that's attributing to some of this.
Are a little different. Right or wrong, everybody has different ways of doing things. And I also noticed, I was looking on the Otter Creek website because they were talking about putting the agendas and the minutes and all that up on the website, and they paid GatorWorks company to set up the website, and they're supposed to do all those things with a calendar and all that, and all I saw was a calendar up. They still don't have the minutes up. They still don't have the agendas up. And I mean, that's the reason that you would hire a company and pay them to do that, so you don't have to be bothered with it.
I personally haven't been too impressed with GatorWorks. I think they overcharge, and I think they get to things when they feel like getting around to them. But if you're paying money for something, I would expect a certain level of service, and I don't think they're getting it from GatorWorks. That's my opinion. But
well, looking at the website, I don't see anything
it's
up
been
there.
A while.
There's a calendar, and all the calendar does is tell you the dates and times of meetings, and that's it. It has no extra information. So unfortunately, they do not have the agendas on the website. They do not have the minutes on there. And those are huge things for the public records. Most other towns, like Chiefland and Bronson, just the surrounding towns to name a few, I'm sure Cedar Key does as well, and many others across the state all have on their websites where you can look up the agendas, the minutes, as well as all of the ordinances. And I know the ordinances is a big cost to get them online, but you'll save so much frustration and lawsuits and troubles along the way getting them up there. So I think that's a huge concern, but at the very least, you should be at least putting the minutes and the agendas up. So I'm disappointed to see that the website is not really doing anything. It was put into play quite a while ago. And of course, if it was left up to Belinda to have to do, I could understand because she's so busy with everything else. But a company was hired to do that. So I'm a little confused as to why that is.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to walk their hand and make sure they're doing what they were hired to do. I mean, I would just go hire somebody else. The thing is, in Chiefland, you have very limited resources as to who to hire. It's really GatorWorks, and I don't know of anybody else.
There is no one else.
Yes, that's the problem. And right away, that would have been a red flag, and I would have went to Gainesville and tried to get someone else to do it.
I was really hoping by now that they would either be streaming live from a Facebook page or have a YouTube channel where they're streaming the meetings. And that's not even for everybody else that's all over the country that may want to watch, but the people that live in the town, there's some people that are elderly, or maybe they have little kids at home. You know, there's all kinds of circumstances where they can't make it to a meeting, or they're sick and they don't want to get everybody else sick. So it's nice that they would have the option to watch it from their home so that they could stay involved.
And especially in this town, the people don't care to go to the meetings. They don't want to be seen. They don't want to discuss. They don't want to talk. They don't want to get to know the neighbors.
So it should be a priority to have the meetings streamed.
So, but I think if it was on a neutral website, I think they would tune into it.
Yes, of course. They absolutely would. So I'm a little disappointed on that end too, to see that that hasn't been put into play. I don't even see a Facebook page at all. So
I don't know what.
That is disappointing, especially when you have 5 members on a board that should be participating and adding to doing those things.
Now, I get Belinda and Jim may not be that tech savvy, but I know for a fact Laura Mott is tech savvy because she's ran for a council seat at the Levy County, and she had her own website, and it was connected. So she knows how to set them up. So they could get her to try to help set them up. You know, I don't know if they've even asked her or if they'd even want to ask her. It's really easy to set up a basic Facebook page. So, I mean, that's not asking. Just about anybody can do that. You just got to take the time to figure out how to do it. But, and Otter Creek has not been a busy season for them up until now. We're getting ready to go into election season, so that gets busy. And they just did the trim meeting, so that can get busy. But outside of that, what else do they got going on? Oh, a festival. Oh, by the way, the festival got pushed back. It looks like more to come out on that. We don't know a lot of details on that, but it might be a collaborative effort with What the Hales and the town
to combine Christmas in the Creek with the council,
right? I guess
which I think would be fabulous.
I think that's a good idea.
So I really hope that the board jumps on that. That should be another thing they're talking about in this meeting, to vote on whether they want to do that or not. And it's such an excellent opportunity for the town to bring people into the town. Surrounding people can meet the council members. Mm-hmm. I think it would be wonderful, and I'm excited that we could attend that.
Yeah, it'd be nice to attend 2 things at once while we're going down there.
Yeah, so then we would absolutely be at the festival and, of course, Christmas in the Creek. And it would be a great time for all. So I'm really hoping that they vote to do that what an opportunity, so generous of Jeremy and George to make that offer to collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely do so many things for so many and for the town specifically. And that's a huge thank you to them.
But you know,
for
if you think parking at Christmas in the Creek was a mess last year, with 4 acres of land, the town hall literally has no parking spaces.
Yeah, that will be the huge challenge that they'll have to figure out. I mean, you have that middle road, but if you're doing Christmas in the Creek and the festival all in one, parking is absolutely going to be a huge challenge. I always thought it would, even separately. Mm-hmm. So, but if there's a will, there's a way. They just got to put their heads together.
They'll just have to park all along the street, and it might be a up to a quarter-mile walk over to the town hall building, because the building itself doesn't have enough space around it. You might get 10 cars parked right there, but they're all on the grass and on the side of the road. It's not going to be designated parking.
Well, again, if there's a will, there's a way, and if everybody puts their heads together, they can make it happen.
They could open up that back area that used to be a park. If it's not wet, you can park back there, and there's quite a bit of space. Now, if it's wet, half of it floods.
So that remains to be seen, and we'll just keep that in our prayers. But I think that would be so much fun.
Yeah, I'm all for that. Thumbs up.
So, and then under new business is the first reading ordinance 2024-02, which it details is an ordinance of the town of Otter Creek, Florida, amending the town charter and the town code of ordinances regarding elections.
Oh, the lawyer's been busy.
Changing the dates of announcement of date of election, designation of seats available, and qualifying dates. Adopting election procedures by ordinance, repealing prior election procedure resolutions and ordinances, and establishing an effective date. Now, the previous agenda that they had hung up just said something about the terms of the seats.
Yeah, they were looking to go to 4-year terms instead of 2-year terms on the seats.
I'm not really sure if that is still in here, because I don't see it in the wording.
Yeah, the wording is...
They may have ditched that and just went to this, or that may be in this without being...
I think you need to read the ordinance the way it's written. This is not what you go by to vote on.
Right.
This is a summary of it.
So, and there was, when they changed the election stuff, I want to say that was in 2022. I could be wrong.
They moved it back, didn't they?
And that was under Russell and Laura. And they changed the dates of the election because the supervisor of elections was trying to get all the towns on board with the same dates, because it was too much for them to do. But the way certain things were written in that were incorrect, and they should have never passed it along the way they did. So it's good that they're readdressing it and fixing it, because again, I think a lot of times with the previous board or boards, they didn't properly read through the things before they just approved it. You usually had a group of people just saying, yeah, they were just yes men or yes women, going along with whatever the current mayor and vice mayor were wanting them to do without reading through any of the information.
Yeah, they didn't used to get packets. So they'd come to the meeting and there are no packets. There's nothing to read. So they just sit there and they vote on something that they're just hearing for the first time. And they don't really know. And so... But, you know,
because for example, that's what happened when they redid all that water stuff. Anybody who read through that, none of it jived. So I don't know how anybody would have voted to pass that at all, when reading through it, there were so many holes in it. And again, if they would have read through it and not passed it, they could have avoided lawsuits and things happening on that end. So it's shameful that people aren't diligently reading through the materials.
And the biggest thing wrong with that, well, there were several things wrong with the way they wrote that water meter. I wish I had that thing in front of me. But I do remember two big things. One was they had the pay in tiers. There were 3 tiers, but the billing system won't even allow for 3 billing tiers. It only does 2.
I don't know that that's true. I just know that what they had didn't coincide with what was written.
Well, that too, because you had commercial versus residential meters.
They could set as many tiers in there as they wanted to.
But there was some problem with the 3, and they couldn't do 3. They could only do 2. I remember something about that. I just don't remember exactly what it is without having it in front of me. But they talked about different meter sizes and different bills for different meter sizes, and I don't know why they even went that way. We're paying so much per gallon; it shouldn't matter what the dispense size of the meter is. It makes no difference.
They were going along with
bigger towns.
Williston was one of the ones they were in cahoots with that, following their example.
But they're following towns that are way bigger than them.
And when you're in a small town, you can look to these other towns to see a layout of things, but you need to dial it back and adjust it for the size of your town and what works for your town, because it's not one size fits all.
No.
By any means. It's always good to reach out and do some research and get information from other towns, but you can't just pass along all their stuff. And a lot of times what I saw is a lot of cut and paste, and they would even forget to update things from the other town and leave it into their things. So that was a huge fail.
They're always looking for a shortcut answer. And they don't want to read anything. Go ahead.
And they were making the people buy their own meters anyway. So if the argument was that they're charging extra money based on the meter size because they were going to have to replace something later on, that was false, because they were making the people buy their own meters.
And then upcharging them.
So that made no sense in the argument either, because I spoke to the people in Williston, and that's what they told me is why they charged by the meter size, is because that they would have money to repair things when it breaks in the future. But if you're making the customer replace the meter, then that doesn't make sense.
That's a moot point. Yeah.
So, I respectfully, I did my research and I read through all the paperwork, and I read through the different, I don't want to say survey. Now the word escapes me at the moment, but they did, what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Help me out.
I'm trying to think of it too. It's like a survey.
So they did a study.
There you go.
And no one read through it. And I read through the study that was done after I had to reach out and get copies of it. But none of it jived for the town and what was going on. And that's what you have to do. You read through the study, you talk to other towns. And I did all that and collected all the information and then went forward with what was needed for the town. Mm-hmm. You can't just put in what other people have and go with that. And you have to read and do your homework.
And that's funny and ironic, because Russell was always screaming for a study. We ought to do a study. We ought to do a study. There is a study already.
They did the study.
But did they read the study?
They did not read the study.
And what's the point of asking for something?
Even Mr. Warm was there during the study, and he was carrying on that a study needed to be done.
Yeah.
But then when I started calling the different places, I found out it had been done. And I got them to send me all the stuff. So I'm wondering why all these people are acting like there's never been a study done, because none of them read anything.
So it just blows my mind how foolish these people are. They want to be in charge of a town, a town of 100 people, but they can't do the basic common sense things. Like, we need a study. Okay, let's get one. Well, we already had one. They should have known they already had one. They should have been reading it. It should have been out on the day one of the meeting, talking about the study.
And then they said they were changing the ordinance based off of the study.
It's so frustrating how stupid these people are.
They did one point of the study and then ignored another point.
Right.
So
it was
a whole pick and choose deal. And then they acted like they knew nothing about a study.
Right.
So It was a very frustrating experience, to say the least.
You see why Madam Mayor did not enjoy being mayor? Because she's having to rehash and fix problems that shouldn't have been there. You shouldn't have had to do all that. That stuff should have been like on the table.
Well, even just having to fix this stuff would have been fine if I didn't have people on the board making it worse and worse and worse. It's like,
Right.
okay, here's the mess you've been handed. Okay, fine, I can accept that. I've done plenty of that. You take it all, you you fix it all, fine. But when somebody hands you this huge mess you have to fix, and then you have all these few obstacles over here that just keep throwing stuff at you and fighting it and all these obstacles, then I can't even do what I need to do.
Right.
So that's very frustrating. So it's one thing just to take the stuff and go fix it. It's another thing when you have people just continuing to rob you of the process.
Okay, so we won't rehash old stuff. Let's just go on with what we have here, I guess.
So I would think, in my opinion, based on that information with changing anything in the election, to me, that's huge things.
It's big because you got 4 open seats, and if they get changed from a 2-year term to possibly a 4-year term, and you don't have the numbers in your favor to fill those 4 seats, you could be handing this board right back over to Russell and his minions for 4 years. You know how much damage he could do in 4 years?
If everything's good, then it's great. But if everything's not, then it's absolutely not. And you're locking it in for 4 years. And I don't even know, based off of what I'm reading, if that's what they're exactly doing here. Yeah. But as a citizen in the town, if I saw something that's regarding elections, water, any of these things, I'm going to be sure to be at this meeting because that's important information.
Yeah.
If it has to do with building and zoning, I mean, there's very few things that are not really important, because most everything that they're going to be talking about, in my opinion, is important. It has to do with your town and the ordinances. You live there, and even if you have nothing going on, one day you might have something going on, so you should be involved and attend. But I personally would think people should show up for this meeting. And what do you think? You think there'll be a good show?
I don't think there will be. I just don't think these people care enough to come to. They don't care about this stuff any more than they cared about any of the other meetings.
I don't know. I would think they care about election stuff, though, because that's their way of getting in and doing what they want.
You would think. One would think. But I'm going to bet.
It remains to be seen.
It does. I evaluate people, and this town is made up of people. I evaluate it based on past performance. They haven't been coming. I don't think anything can happen in this town unless you were to pay them to come.
But I know as far as the election procedures go, they absolutely need to do a designation of the seats. I think that would help out a lot. And I know there was that they put in that paperwork, the elections are in April. Mm-hmm. So usually what would happen before they did this last update to the election stuff, which I think was 2022, not positive, but the elections would have been in April, and then the following meeting in April after the election is where they would hand it all over and vote for a new mayor. Now, when they reworded the election stuff last, they put it that it would go till May, the May meeting.
And it's the only town that does that.
And that made no sense. So hopefully they're switching it back to the meeting after the election in April.
The same meeting of the election.
Yeah, because that only makes sense. Why would you wait a whole nother month? Makes no sense. Yeah. So hopefully they're changing that in the wording of that one as well.
Plus you have some people on the board knowing that it's their last meeting. Now they can vote stupid.
So. Then of course you have your department reports, your administration, the maintenance, the public safety, building, zoning, and water. And again, they have no names designated, so I guess they took that off the table completely. I just thought last time might have been a fluke, because I remember before they were putting Belinda's name next to administration. Richard would be the maintenance, of course, and public safety was Laura Mott, and building and zoning and water is Zim. So I'm assuming they took those names off, possibly because people were questioning what Laura Mott was doing for public safety. That would be my only indicator as to why they took the names off, because she was the only one named there that was not doing anything. So
Surprised? I'm not.
And then announcements, the children's table, it doesn't have dates on here. It just says to be announced, which you can look on the website under the calendar, and it does have the dates on there for the children's table and for the Wackasassa meeting, which will be Wednesday, tomorrow, October 16th at 1 o'clock, and that will be in Otter Creek. They always flip it between Bronson, Otter Creek, and Cedar Key, so it's Otter Creek's turn.
Oh.
And that's another important meeting, I think, that should be streamed for the residents.
Mm-hmm. The residents are absolutely clueless about this Wackasassa board and what it does.
Now, I'm sure when it's done in Bronson that they stream it,
I'm sure.
because they have a channel and they stream their meetings. And I would think it would be extra important for it to be streamed here, because it's not just Otter Creek that's involved in it. You have Cedar Key, you have Bronson. So what about the citizens in those towns that can't make it to the meeting? It's at 1 o'clock on a weekday. There's a lot of people that work that can't make it to the meetings. So they should absolutely be live streaming that meeting, because it's a huge issue. Your water, you want to know about it. And minutes, if you request minutes after the fact, they don't really tell you the full of anything, because minutes is not a verbatim.
It's a summary.
Yeah, just a summary of what happened. It's not every little detail. So the live stream would be the best option for that. Plus, you wouldn't have all the drama. If the town just live streamed the meetings, it cuts out all the drama.
Yeah. You know, and if I remember correctly, the county that we live in here now, I can actually go start the permitting process online. I can go to the county and I can, like, if I need to do a sewer repair, I can do a sewer repair permit right online and start filling it out. I don't know what happens past that, because I don't need it and I haven't done it. But I did look into it. And I'm like, wow, they got this online. I can start a sewer permit right online.
That's nice.
Now there you have to go to the state. So you have to go to the health department to start a permit for a septic system.
In Florida.
In Florida. But here in Tennessee, it's a little different. And our town, although the billing is from the town, they don't have anything to do with the water treatment. So I don't know what they do in the town meeting here. I guess they just talk about the downtown.
We haven't attended a town meeting here. See, that's the beauty too. If things are not being handled incorrectly or corruptly in a lot of people's towns, they don't even bother attending the meetings. Now, we will be attending meetings in the future. It's just there's so much going on right now, and we're getting settled in, because I do think you should be aware of what's happening in your town.
But all the permits here, we do know, all the permits here, none of them go through the town. So there won't be any of this for the town. They all go through the county. So the county manages all the permits. And they have a link on their website. So I was like, wow, okay, this is streamlined. There's a process.
That makes it so nice.
Yeah, because you know what to expect. It tells you what your fees are going to be, what your timelines are. It's very informative.
Now I do see, and then comes public comments, super important. Again, when I ran meetings, I did 2 spots for public comments, because I think it's very important to allow the public to be able to speak. It's the only time they really get the chance to address the whole board. Why not give everybody the opportunity to voice their concerns, ask questions, give kudos, whatever it might be? And I don't see the big deal. And a lot of people like to make it out to be a big deal, but you're doing a disservice by not allowing your citizens to be part of the process of the town they live in.
Yeah, it just looks kind of shady.
So there is one spot for it, and I do notice that they have changed a few things in here. It says members of the public have 3 minutes to speak to the council on any one topic, but they've made a note that water bill accounts will not be discussed at town hall meetings. Please get with the town clerk during normal business hours.
And I understand that. If it's someone's personal account question, if it's a water question in general, then
Right.
yes.
And I understand the confusion because I do remember in the old ordinances and the way it was stated, they actually had it wrote in the ordinances that that was the time that people would address all that was at the meetings.
Oh.
So people that have been there or long-term residents might be confused by that because it was actually in the ordinances that they would talk about it at that time. But it really doesn't make much sense to talk about it at that time because you're throwing all your personal information out there.
And the clerk doesn't have the information in front of her. She's going to have to go into the office and look up your account.
And if you have a water leak and your bill's high, why would you wait for a meeting? I'd be calling immediately to have that looked at immediately.
I'd be shutting it off at the meeting and be like, hey, I got a problem.
So that, I think, is just mostly because of old practice. There was, I believe, something in the ordinances, like if you couldn't pay your bill and it was out of date, like you had to go before the board and ask for extensions, which is really quite silly.
Yeah.
It's really old way of doing things. So I'm glad that they have nixed that because that's not really the proper place to do it in the meeting.
It's not.
But again, if you do have concerns about the water in general, absolutely, that's the place to bring it up. But your water bill, you don't need to air that out in front of everybody. And Belinda doesn't have that information in front of her. So that's a huge inconvenience.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I wonder if these water filters are back online yet. They should be online by now.
I would certainly hope so.
But if they're not, I'd be pressing. I'd be pressing for some answers on that.
And that's really what you have to do when it comes to the DEP and all these other agencies is you have to be like a thorn in the side to get stuff done. It's sad, but I guess all these different agencies just have so much going on and so much to deal with that, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, unfortunately.
But I'm not very fond of the way Florida's architecture and the way things are done. I don't like it.
I don't know that's any better in any of the other states.
Yeah,
either.
and I don't have anything to compare it to.
Can't just, I could just say I don't like the way that's done.
Okay.
But
I don't like the way that's done.
I don't know that when it comes to government in general, if it's any better anywhere else, to be honest with you.
You know, if Florida was like the 49th or 50th state, you know, maybe I could give some leniency on they're still trying to figure things out. But they're one of the original 13 colonies. Why ain't they got this figured out by now? This should be like bam, bam, bam.
I can't answer a lot of questions.
Florida's
when it
been
comes
around
to
a while.
government.
I mean, it's an East Coast state, and you know, the progression of the Pilgrims and all that went from East Coast to West Coast. So all these states on the East Coast should have this stuff like, man, they should know exactly. This is who you go. This is how it's done. But they don't. It seems like every time you got to get something done, it's something different.
Well, my experience is when you get government involved, you got a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Period.
I think the government, as much as possible, should try to stay out of, you know, but that's a different subject.
Different subject for a different time.
Yeah. You know what? I'm just really glad that we're not in this mess anymore. I enjoyed you being mayor. You were getting a lot of stuff done, and a lot more stuff would get done with the board if you had this board. And you and Belinda worked well together. And
Yeah, I agree. I agree, but sometimes, you know, you're in different places for a reason, for a season. And I guess I was just the glitch in the matrix. I did what I could for the time I was there, and God has blessed us with new journeys.
Better ones.
So, anything else you got to say?
As far as the meeting is concerned, I have more questions than I have answers because of the new revision just gives a lot of, there's a lot of blanks. And now I have more questions than I had with the first one.
And it's unfortunate, but I don't know that anybody will be streaming the meeting. Certainly the town won't be.
Yeah, so for the summary, we may have to go to, I may have to give them a call and ask questions. That wraps it up for the meeting.
I think so.
Let's hope it goes well, and hopefully you get some of these questions answered.
And in the future, hopefully the town does start a channel to live stream. And I don't know after this month that we'll be covering any more meetings. So this might be the big finale.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see. But keep praying for that town that they continue on the right track. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope that answered some of your questions, or it may have just left you with more questions. Possibly. Y'all take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.